I love your points about how, these classic texts are so upheld, in modern curriculum and modern literature. What about them, do you think, in a personal level, makes them a classic? And what parts of them, I guess, do you really love, in terms of what you wanted to cross over into your own work? What about them makes them so special to you?
That's a great question. I think one of the things I like about both of them is they feel like big stories. They're not small stories, they're big. And I wanted that in Waking Romeo. I wanted to write something that, evoke this idea of epic love. And that's what Romeo and Juliet and Wuthering Heights do for me. They feel epic. And, I am both a realist and a hopeless romantic. And so a lot of what I write it's the disconnect within myself. I'm a hopeless romantic, but I know that that's not what life is really like. And so I think that what I really liked about those books is they gave me this really, juicy counterplay. Like I had these wonderful, iconic, really recognizable female characters and male characters to work with. And then I could bounce stuff back and forth in a really in a more modern context. But for me, Wuthering Heights, I remember reading it in high school. I studied it, and like for me, part of the magic of that is the setting. It's got this incredible backdrop of like the moors, and it feels eerie and it's a bit sexy, and I was really struck by how much of that book for me was flavored by the character of location. And I suppose in my writing I wanted to emulate that and try and create a world that felt really compelling unto itself. With Romeo and Juliet, I mean, I think it's just so deeply embedded in our psyche now. It's in both of those books, the idea that it's almost destined, like it's a soulmate, and yet circumstances or whatever means that they can't be together. It feels even more romantic if it can't happen, I think, in terms of the way we process books. So I suppose on one level, that's another thing that I wanted to look at, like the idea of the star-crossed lovers and to explore that.
Yeah, and of course, in your own story, I feel like Juliet has, to say the least, a lot more agency in this story than she might have in the original text. Was it important to you to kind of give her that agency as a character throughout the novel?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose part of the big motivation for me in writing this particular story, as I was saying, is I was reacting against myself. I bought it hook, line, and sinker when I was a teenager, and then I got older and thought, hold on, what was I thinking? And so what I really wanted in a character was someone that reflected all of the bits of me and other young girls, not that I'm that young anymore, but just the idea that we can be modern and we can be strong, and we can not always know how to fit romantic ideals into that yet. And it's probably not the romantic fairy tale, but it's not gritty disaster either. It's somewhere in between, and what I really wanted for her was for her to be going through this moment where she's trying to separate the real from the fantasy, and then ultimately like end on a note of hope where the reality can be even more beautiful.
Of course.